I was in such a bad mood tonight.
I think I knew that though. So
part of me was like I was like, you really, this is the kind of mood where you should just stay home. But I didn't want to miss all those people being in the same place at the same time because that never fucking happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew you were in a bad mood, but I didn't
I was hormonal insane. Insane hormonal.
It didn't stand out to me as being particularly bitchy.
Cool. Well, that's my max bitch, so if you didn't notice, that works.
Well, my only, people can be grumpy all they want. My thing is people who take it out on other people.
Yeah, I don't.
They're just, you didn't do that. Because I would have straight up been like, no.
I feel like I am just because I'm not being myself.
Right.
But I would never.
But that's it, and you didn't do that, so I didn't notice.
Cool.
Because I said, I would have been like, no, look, we're best friends. No.
Yeah, give me permission to slap me. I've always wanted to be, actually hit. Yeah, I want to know what that feels like and deserve it, you know?
Yeah.
I deserve that is what I would say.
Once again to Noah's Snark, where two former religious types and current snarks take a look at religious media on its own terms.
I'm Hillary.
I'm Josh, a.k.a. the wood that a woodchuck chucks. That's my name today.
Cool.
So let's talk about the things to talk about before we talk about the things we're talking about.
Uh-huh.
Do we have any hits and misses?
We have something. Let's see.
Like to acknowledge.
In the episode about Joseph and his dreams.
Yes.
We go off for a while on the quote-unquote rainbow coat that's not a rainbow coat.
Correct.
And I mentioned an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer gets a hold of the Joseph's Technicolor dream coat from the Broadway play. And we talked also about an episode where he's wearing a pimp coat.
Yes.
Pimping down the street. It is the same episode.
Okay.
So he's wearing that coat when he comes across as being a pimp, because there's another circumstance why he has a cane. He has a cane for some reason in that episode, and he has a crazy hat. It's called The Wigmaster. It's from season 7, episode 18.
Okay. How many seasons are there total?
Of Seinfeld?
Yeah.
10, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember.
That sounded right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a little later.
So he finds a dream coat near the end?
No, it's he has the dream coat because, God, the whole storyline was so bonkers. But it's Jerry knew the guy who did the hair. He was the wig master on the Broadway set. And somehow Kramer was able to finagle borrowing the coat for an afternoon or for a while for some reason. So he's wearing that coat, and then I don't remember the cane. I don't remember how he gets a hold of it, but it's a very funny episode. As most Seinfeld episodes are. I've been wanting to rewatch that series. I loved it so much.
All right. Excellent. Let's see. Do I have any hits and misses? No, I am perfect and everything I do is wonderful.
Great.
I see your pop cap on your phone and I'm jealous because mine did not stick. I tried.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
Don't know what the deal is.
Oh,
it's gotta be what it's...
Are you sure you did, I don't doubt that you did everything right. You took the plastic thing off and it was tacky to your fingers. I have no idea why it wouldn't be on this film.
And then they have a little plastic bit.
Maybe because it's yours is...
So they have another little part in the packaging. They say if you don't have a case or whatever, use this little plastic bit and to attach that to the phone, and then attach the pop socket. And I tried that and it didn't work either. It worked less. So
it must just be the texture of your case.
Yeah, it just the texture of my case just wasn't cooperating. Which is
so weird.
Cool, I guess, but also now I need to figure something out.
Mine's textured but not ridged like yours is.
Yeah, so whatever. I like this case though, so I don't think I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
So, whatever, that's the thing. That's a miss in my personal life.
Terribly sorry about that.
I went to a party, and I was the first one there, so I just played with the pop socket for 10 minutes until other people showed up. Let's talk about what we are doing today. Hillary, what is it called?
I can tell you it's not called Paw Patrol.
That's true.
That is a TV show.
It's true.
It is called Paws and Tails.
Paws and Tails. She nailed it. She got it. We did 3 episodes today. It is an audio program. It's an audio drama similar to Adventures in Odyssey, which we've done before.
Yes.
The 3 episodes are called Let There Be More, parts 1 and 2, and then Grace to Hugh. Hugh, the name, Hugh,
yes.
like Hugh Grant.
Yes.
But in this case, Hugh McClaw.
Hugh McClaw.
For a minute, I thought they were saying humid claw. So that's a stupid name. All right, so let's, as always, describe this thing in one sentence. Do you have a sentence you can use?
Yes. I was just going to say it's Adventures in Odyssey, but better.
Oh, interesting. I went somewhat opposite. Classic kids entertainment, funny voices, but without any real heart. I like this less than Adventures in Odyssey.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think I liked it better because the music was really good, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. As you know, music...
It's not important to you.
It completely tunes me out.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the songs that are in this, but I often found myself unable to pay attention.
It should also be worth noting that I don't remember a lot about Adventures in Odyssey. I just remember having a lot of issues with what they were putting out there.
Yeah.
I don't remember the details.
Yeah. I mean...
Maybe if I listen to it again, I'd like it better. I don't know.
I am not saying that Adventures in Odyssey is stuff I would recommend kids listen to.
Right.
But I found this a little more lifeless.
Okay. All right.
But we'll get there.
Yeah,
let's talk about it. Maybe we'll figure it out.
Maybe you'll sway me.
Or vice versa.
Oh.
So let's talk about Let There Be More Part 1. And we open with what I thought was a preview of the upcoming episode. Because it says, welcome to the world of Paws and Tails. And then one kid taunts another into jumping into the river. And then that happens, and it's a whole thing. And the narrator welcomes us to Wildwood. And tells us about how nothing gets a fella's heart running faster than when he's riding a steam engine toward adventure.
I like his voice.
He does have a nice little country old guy voice.
Yeah.
CJ, Ned, and Theo, CJ's dad, are doing just that today, heading higher into the mountains than ever before. And they've been warned of all kinds of danger, bandit attacks, avalanches, freak tornadoes, etc.
Oh, I want to hear the Freak Tornado episode.
Right?
Yeah.
But then these same characters are on the boat now, because we've transitioned, and they are asking constant questions about all those dangers they've been told about. And the guide is eventually overwhelmed by them. Apparently they're like on a ferry. Mm-hmm. And the guide's like, will you please stop? You're scaring other people. People are getting nervous because we've never had any of these incidents. It's all a lie. And, people are getting nervous.
I don't remember this part.
Yeah, it was like the very beginning. Because, the kid and the other kid, and he's like, I heard you got bandit problems. He's like, I heard you got tornadoes. And the guide's like, no, none of that ever happened.
Okay.
You don't remember that?
No, and I just listened to this episode on the way here.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, go on. And I'm getting nervous.
And it sounds very much like, to me, it sounded like the guide was one getting nervous. Mm-hmm. Because he was just like, no, never happened. Nope, no. And he's pulling his collar.
Yeah.
But they eventually make it to wherever they're going, and CJ and Ned, who are a little baby bear and a beaver, notice that there's a factory way back here in the woods, in the wildwoods, where they are. And Theo explains that it belongs to his cousin. And even better still, it's a candy factory. Mm-hmm. It makes candy.
This is where I know what's going on.
All right. So
okay.
This is like a minute.
I blacked out.
But they pile into Alex's little jalopy. Alex is the owner of the factory, the cousin. They pile into his little jalopy and head towards the factory. And once on board, Ned points out that everyone in town looks sad and poor. And Alex tells him, it just be like that sometimes.
Yeah. It's like, yep, that's just how the town is.
And I, of course, immediately thought of, because he mentions that most people here are just barely scraping by. And I was hoping that the show was going to be about how a wealthy capitalist factory owner just let everyone scrape by while he prospers. And I hope the episode ended with whipping out the guillotines.
That would have been more interesting.
Yes. But now it's time for the B story, so we have to set this up. And we meet Stacy and Marcia, who are visiting an old woman named Alma. And I don't know who she is, but she's very clearly supposed to be Spanish or Latin in some way.
Hispanic of some sort.
Yes. And she either works in or is in a rest home. I eventually figured it out that she is in one.
Yes.
It was...
Well, the second listening is when I figured that out, because she mentions, they're just, you can talk about anything, just not your bunions, because that's all I hear at the rest home. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to go back and be sure. I was like, is she in it?
Yeah.
Does she work there? I don't know. But the point is, she sounds kind of old, and Marcia does call her wise, right. Which to me implies that she's definitely old.
Definitely old.
That's what you call old people.
Right. She's in a wheelchair. Not that means she's old, but it adds to this.
Right. It adds to she's probably not working at the rest home.
Right.
Because, I'm sure people in wheelchairs can, but it's probably more difficult.
Yeah.
And, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
All right, but Marcia is a moose, she's very awkward and clumsy because she's going through a growth spurt because she's a moose.
I did not know she was a moose.
Yes, they didn't mention it. They don't tell you these things. I had to look up some of them. In the next episode, they mention a couple of people.
Yeah, I know that I had no idea for at least like the first episode, maybe the first 2 episodes, I had no idea what animals anybody was.
Right. I am calling this 2-parter a 1 episode.
Okay.
But, so the second episode, which is the third we heard.
Gotcha. Okay.
They mention a couple of people's actual species.
Right.
But yeah, in this, they don't mention it at all. No. I thought Marcia was a cow. Because she was talking about how she's like big and clumsy.
I just thought they were all bears.
Well, I thought she kind of had like a cow voice. Like she sort of.
Is she the one with the high pitched annoying voice?
No, it's got the sort of weird like heavy sounding voice.
Huh. I don't know.
She's like, I'm Marcia and I'm clumsy and slow.
I thought she was a fat bear.
Yeah, I thought she sounded like a cow, but turns out she's a moose.
Okay.
The other one is a bear, Stacy. That's the high pitched one.
Okay.
That's Stacy. She has that. Sorry, what are we talking about?
Animals.
Marcia asks Alma, the old woman, for advice. I don't know what Alma is. I'm gonna assume hippo because she said she was big too.
Yeah, she was clumsy too, wasn't she? Yeah. She said that.
So she's like a cow or hippo or something.
Let's say she's a cow. I love cows.
Okay, she's a cow now. And Marcia's been reading her Bible, and she asks for some wisdom. Because, people often in the Bible start out unimpressive, but then they grow to do amazing and scary things, which is, pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the people at Marcia's church, they don't. They don't have any of that stuff, and they've been pretty much the same for decades. And she's just like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it's not really a bad question.
It's a great question,
especially for a little baby to be asking, because she's like... They're all, like, preteens.
Right. It's a child bear. A child bear asked a really great question.
Yeah. So she's like, why are these people not doing anything?
Right.
And she's even asked the people at her church, and they've responded that they don't really want to do scary things. They just want to live normal lives and sit in the same spot every Sunday.
Yep.
But Marcia thinks they should want more, and she wants more, and she asks Alma if it's wrong to want so much more than most of the adults. Alma's, of course, inspired by Marcia's desire to want a nice big hug from God. That's not me. That is actually some of the dialogue that I'm paraphrasing.
Yes. She thinks that people should have hugs from God.
Mm-hmm. But she isn't yet ready to answer the question because Alma is frustratingly... what's the word I'm looking for? She obscures things.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, I'll answer you that, but first, take me for a walk.
Hold on, there is a good word. It's coming to me. Not evasive. Cryptic.
Cryptic. That's perfect.
Yay.
Yeah, so she's just always like, I have an answer for that, but first let's go for a walk. And so she wants to be taken out into the garden while they go through a few more questions, because she's going to ask more questions before she answers the first question, because that is apparently what wise people do.
Mm-hmm. She answers in riddles, which is fun for
everyone. Children.
Yes.
That's what wise people do. So back at the factory, the kids and Theo get a look around. And of course the factory's tremendous, and most of it hasn't even been used in years. That's what they find out. Turns out, it's simply too big and expensive to actually run this factory. And so even the uncle that Alex the cousin inherited it from didn't really get a lot of use out of it. He didn't use anything but one machine, and that machine makes this candy. And he says, go ahead kids and eat your barrel of candy. Which is exciting for them until they realize that this candy sucks.
It sucks.
Tastes terrible.
Tastes like dirt.
So Alex complains to the kids, when they reveal how gross the candy is, he complains because he works his ass off all day to make crappy candy, and he doesn't even have any money to show for it. Mm-hmm. Of course, he doesn't say he works his ass off, but...
He says it in his own way.
Right. And right before the commercial break, he tells us it's only going to get worse, so the dramatic tension is escalating.
He's a real downer.
He's a real negative Nancy.
Real defeatist.
But we get back to Alma, and she's explaining that if the Bible tells us something that doesn't seem to be true, we only have 3 options. God didn't tell us the truth, we are misinterpreting it, or we are doing something wrong. And of course, the kids don't like the first 2 choices for why Marcia wants to do more.
Because God doesn't lie.
Right, because 1, God doesn't lie. 2, I don't think I'm wrong about great things. That should be a thing that can be done.
Right.
So the third one, if it's the third one, we just have to find out what the wrong thing is that is being done, and then we can get all the promises from God that he promises us. Mm-hmm. So the children realize that must be the answer, but Alma warns them that getting the wrong result will likely lead them to disaster. So, to ponder what's wrong in their lives very carefully. So
yeah.
It's like, hey.
This is implanting general anxiety disorder in children.
Right. It's like, hey, you should try to find the answer, but if you're wrong, you're going to ruin everything.
Everything's going to go terrible for you.
So we cut back to the factory now, and Theo doesn't understand why Alex is doing so poorly, considering he has this massive factory, but it turns out that he doesn't even know what most of the unused machines even do. Mm-hmm. So he spent his whole life savings and every resource he has into this factory trying to make a living, but he simply can't anymore because he has one client who only wants this really shitty candy.
Right.
And that's it. And that's obviously not enough to live on.
Right.
Theo is certain that God has more plans for this fancy factory than crappy candy, but so far nothing's come to him. To either of them, really. Mm-hmm. And while the adults ponder, the younger boys have gone exploring, and now they call for help, and it's revealed that the manager's office, which they have found, has old photos on the wall, which show what the factory used to make. Alex is flabbergasted to find out the variety of things this factory used to provide, because he's very stupid.
Very stupid. And also, just how long has he been in this factory? He hasn't explored a single fucking...
years, I think.
Yeah, so he hasn't looked in the manager room?
No, he hasn't even looked at the factory at all. So he finds out that there's a manual for every machine here, too.
What?
So he could have found out what they were doing. He's very stupid.
He's very stupid. He does not deserve this factory.
Despite this being obviously good news, Alex is actually upset. And he says to the kids that he wishes they'd never found this place because now he knows the kind of potential that he could be living up to, but he's out of resources to actually do any of it. Because he's got no money and no employees, so he's even more despondent now. Because he's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
This entire time.
I'm sitting in a gold mine, and now I need money to make this back into a gold mine.
And I have no money to do the things I need to do.
Kill yourself.
Yeah, Alex is an idiot. But we're going to get there. He's not even done being stupid yet.
I know.
So we're going back to the girls, and Alma explains that some people have small souls and only want small things. Mostly comfort.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, I want to know more about that theology. Who's got the small souls?
I got a small soul, I think.
What happens to small souls?
I just want my small soul only wants a place to live and a dog. I don't dream of bigger.
Well, you don't also think that you go into a eternal paradise.
No.
So I'm curious what happens to the small souls in heaven. Do they get treated the same? You would have to say, if it's going to be heaven, it has to be treated the same. But then why? Why do some people have smaller souls then? They didn't make their own souls. It's not up to them what their souls are like. Or
is a soul something that you develop? If it's an underdeveloped one, it's your fault.
Don't know.
I don't believe in souls. Let's move on.
Right. It's technically we're arguing the semantics of nonsense, but but I'm still curious. But they only want small things, so they get small results. And then they complain about how small their Christianity is, says Alma. But Marcia and Stacy don't want these small potatoes, so they ask what they need to do to get all the cool shit that they were promised in the good book. And I was bored.
Yeah.
At this point, I was just like, ugh. I definitely took a pause, and I was just like, I wrote it down. I'm bored.
You took a pause.
It's... Because, honestly, at this point, it's about 14 minutes into this episode, maybe less.
Yeah.
And it just felt like it had been so long for me.
Yeah, no, it did feel long.
Okay. But Alma explained to the children slowly and belaboringly that God wants to be with the children all the way 100%. And so they need to embrace God 100%, and they should get his rewards 100%. Because if you don't ask the almighty and limitless deity for something, he can't afford it. Mm-hmm. It's like...
No. He needs you to come crawling.
Yes.
Then he may bless you.
Like, hey, I can give you all that cool shit, but, like, first you gotta, like, really want it.
Yeah.
It costs me so
Prove
much.
I
have limitless power, so, like, it's so much work. So the children at the factory continue exploring said factory, and now they found the keys in the manager's office. So they find even more factory, because it turns out the factory is even bigger than they realized.
It's bigger on the inside, is literally what they say. And I'm like, TARDIS?
Which would be cool. A TARDIS factory. I'll go there.
That would be cool.
But they have more and even bigger machines. And Alex looks like a real goddamn fool now, doesn't he? He didn't even know.
It's one of those things, like, you can see from the outside how big it is. He's like, I only have this room.
There's just one little space here.
Yeah.
No, it turns out it's like, I think they said the space he was using, the space he knew about, was a third of the factory. He's the dumbest person who's ever existed. He's so stupid. How do you not... You can maybe miss a room or two in a really large house.
Right.
He's missing 2/3 of the building.
But it's not like they discover, like, secret passages and secret rooms and stuff in old houses because people realize that it's like the footage doesn't match the inside,
right.
And it's pretty obvious. This would be like saying, "Oh, I think you have a secret room. It is miles wide."
Right. That's what I mean. You can miss a room and I can see the argument.
Right.
He missed 2/3 of the building, which you can see from the outside.
Right.
He knows how big this place is. And it's like literally going to a home where you can see several stories.
Right.
And being told the first floor is it.
Yeah.
And just being like,
okay,
I guess there's just one floor.
I know. It'd be one thing if this was, like, mostly underground.
Yeah.
Like, if there was, like, you unlock a door and suddenly, like, there's, like, a cavern.
Yeah.
That's different. This is, yeah.
Like, they are really stretching the, what is it? Plausible deniability. Or suspension of disbelief.
Suspension of disbelief, yeah.
To be like, he just didn't know that there was more factory. But whatever, the kid's smarter than him, apparently. Find out there's more factory. And my question, besides all that, was also why did no one help this guy transition into owning a factory?
Yeah, did the uncle die suddenly? He just found out he found out in the will that he gets this thing?
Yeah. And I think they give kind of an answer, but not a sufficient one, I think.
I don't even remember any answer being
It'll happen at the end of the next episode.
Oh, okay.
But we're going to come back to this point.
Okay.
But there's a bunch of crap here, and Theo tells him that God didn't give him all this stuff to play it safe and keep making shitty candy. And the kids find even more stuff, and everyone retreats to go read some manuals and figure this shit out. So while doing this, the candy pickup guy shows up looking for his crappy candy, and he asks the guy to come back later. And Theo very rudely, in front of this guy, tells him, just stop making bad candy, and instead you should start doing all this other stuff. But because Alex isn't an asshole, at least entirely, he figured he should at least fulfill the order that he's already got. Mm-hmm. But the pickup guy points out that the candy isn't candy at all. Never was.
Yep.
They're pellets used to change the color of concrete. So it's literally dirt, which is why it tastes like dirt.
Right. And also, it seems like that would be quite toxic to children, don't you?
Well, they didn't eat a lot of it. But yes, it's probably quite bad for them.
Right. How dumb could this man be? How dumb could this man be?
He's like, yeah, this must be candy. That's why it tastes like dirt. Hope he's not sustaining himself.
Only one town that likes this candy.
Hope he's not sustaining himself off this candy.
Oh my god.
Since he doesn't have any money. Maybe he's just eating candy for sustenance.
Christ. You're probably right. He's been eating dirt pellets.
He's been eating dirt pellets.
He's actually malnourished, and that's why he's so dumb.
Also, how does he not know what goes into it?
Yeah.
Does this machine just work completely by itself? In which case, he's a fucking bajillionaire because he's created endless energy. Like, I have literally any device that can make something else with no input.
Yeah.
Not making anything into it.
It just happens.
It just happens?
Yeah. I show up, there's pellets.
That's technology that can be harnessed to literally give the world infinite energy.
The storyline's so dumb. Right.
So, like, it's really confusing that he doesn't just buy dirt and put it in the machine.
Right.
So however he's making it, it's magic.
Where are the ingredients coming from?
Alright. But okay. And it also turns out that Alex isn't not entirely an asshole after all. Because then, when he finds out that this is dirt pellets, he quits the concrete coloring business, even though why?
He's
like, I want to do other stuff.
It's still a product.
Right. He's like, I'm going to do other stuff now. And even the guy's like kind of supportive.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we still need the, what?
You still have a machine that makes the stuff that we want to buy.
Yeah, like the other stuff isn't super impressive. It's like handles for like machinery and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, you still need to make products, and this is a product, so just like, continue making it, you dumb dummy.
God.
Alright, but we're going back to Alma because I can't handle that anymore. And also that's how the story works.
Right.
The kids are still trying to sort out exactly how to love God or whatever, the appropriate way. And Alma says that he wants us to obey, your favorite word, to love others and whatever, but there's no specifics on just what they're supposed to do. Sometimes it's prayer, and sometimes it's just trying something, which is to say, prayer does work, except when it doesn't, which is basically useless advice.
Right.
But taking the risk is called faith, and that's good, so take a chance, you tiny baby children.
Yeah, which actually goes against what she said before, which is, well, not against it, but remember when she was like, you gotta try things, but if you do something wrong, you'll fucking ruin everything. So get out there and try. Get out there and try.
It's kind of hard to be like, you gotta have faith, but also if you fuck it up, you're gonna be a drug-addicted prostitute.
Try a bunch of things, but if you chose the wrong ones,
right.
You're going to hell.
And now we get a song break to close the show. You can probably guess what happened to me.
You blacked out.
I just zoned all the way out. Do you remember anything? It's like a summary of the episode, right?
Yes.
Kinda.
Well, it's kind of like the theme of the episode is sung by Alma.
Do you remember any part of it?
No.
Okay, cool.
But it has I know it has like kind of a salsa.
Yeah, it did have a little salsa beat. But yeah, I can't. I just can't. I'm so bad at music. But Let There Be More Part 2 is up next. And the first thing I realized is that what I thought was going to be a preview for this episode was not. Because it's the same intro where one of the kids is like, hey, climb and jump in the river. And he's like, I don't want to. But then he does it anyway.
Right.
That's apparently just the intro?
Yeah. Well, it's like, I guess it's like the audio version of like the openings for most sitcoms.
Yeah.
Where just like you show clips from different episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
I didn't get it either at first, but.
Yeah. But it's not a good intro, I have to say. But whatever, let's move forward. Because we're back with the girls and Alma. And the children talk about whether God really will change everything for them. And so one kid recommends building a house. But Stacy wants to start a little smaller. So they settle on soup. And we introduce a new child now. This is Goose.
Yes.
We find out later she's a weasel.
Right.
Goose is the one with the really goofy voice.
I hate Goose's voice. I hate it. It's like some of these other ones. The kids sound like they're played by kids. And then Goose is clearly played by...
someone doing a funny voice.
An old theater kid who still has dreams of Broadway or like making it big. Oof.
But they eventually settle on making soup, and they're going to make soup and give it to needy families. And they initially name it the Stacy, Marcia, and Goose Super Supper, spelled S-O-U-P-E-R.
I know, because it's clever.
And Alma tells them that this is only to serve others. So Alma tells them that if this is only to serve others, they will quickly burn out or run out of resources. So they shouldn't try to serve others. Mm-hmm. They should try to become like Christ. What the hell does that mean? Apparently the same thing.
Others.
But if you do it while trying to be like Jesus, then you'll get his assistance. And that's what you really need to succeed. So let's be clear.
Yes.
Serving others, bad.
Yes.
You want to be like Jesus, which means serving others.
Right.
But while trying to be like Jesus.
Yes.
What does that mean? We don't really say, but let's assume it's a distinction.
Yeah.
That's not usul.
No,
Alma.
especially to children.
Right. Like, that's a stupid distinction to make to an adult. These are children. Unless you lay out specifically what you have to do different to be like Jesus, you're really just saying the same thing with this added bullshit.
Right.
That they don't probably know the answer to, because guess what? Ooh, let me tell you a fun story.
Yeah.
About a comic book. It's called Second Coming. It's really funny so far. It is about Jesus coming back to Earth. So it opens with God and he makes the world, and then Adam and Eve eat the fruit, and that's bad because they're punished now. And then they literally ask him at one point, how are we supposed to know that it was a bad thing to do if we didn't have the knowledge of good and evil yet? And God says, don't try to legal fuck me, Adam, okay? It's like, you did the bad thing, you get the punishment. Even though it's an excellent point.
Yes.
And that's also more or less a quote. He didn't say legal fuck me, but something similar. Because God swears in this.
Oh, great.
So Jesus, because they go through the whole Old Testament, God drowns the world at one point, and Jesus is like, I want to figure out how I can help. Let me go to Earth. I'm like, figure it out. So he goes to Earth, and he gets killed. Immediately. Not immediately, but 30 years later. So he gets back to heaven, and God says, you only lasted 30 years? What the hell, man? And so he's very disappointed in Jesus because he didn't last very long. But then Jesus is like, no, I gotta go back because, like, you may not know this. Our audience may not know this, but there is a quote in the Bible, from the Bible, when Jesus is not dead yet the first time, before he gets crucified. The people, maybe after, whatever. Point is, he says he's going to be back before the people near him, before all of them are dead. He will return to the earth. This is a real quote. Now, there's lots of, obviously, things people have to do a lot of work to try to explain why that's not, it hasn't really happened, or it's not really true because Jesus, it's been 2,000
So it's
fucking
after
years.
he was resurrected. So, like...
Probably.
Okay.
I think that's...
It has to be, because if it wasn't, then he did do that.
Right, then he did do that. So
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's after the resurrection. I'd have to look into it. But yes, it's a problem that people have to deal with, so it's probably after the resurrection.
Right.
Jesus in this comic book is like, I'm gonna go back down because I told him I'd be right back. And he's like, no. God's like, no, you don't get to go. You fucked up the first time. All right, cut 2,000 years.
Yes.
There's a superhero. He's like Superman for this fictional world.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very strong and powerful. God finally is willing to let Jesus go back, but he wants him to like learn to be tough. So he goes to the superhero and he says, hey, can I drop him off and like you just show him how to be strong? So like he can be good this time instead of dying immediately. This is where the joke comes. Towards the end of the first issue, Superman is going in and he's stopping some drug dealers and he's beating them up and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he like he injures two really badly. And then he throws them outside the drug house or whatever. And he's like, I'm gonna talk to you later, interrogate you. But he goes in and he like wounds or maims or kills some of the others.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes back out to see the old drug dealers and they're gone. And he's like, Jesus, what happened to them? They were like right here.
Yeah.
Jesus is like, oh yeah, I healed them. It's like, what do you mean you healed them? He's like, they needed help, so I helped them. So that's basically, apparently, the premise of this book.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Are we doing this for the podcast sometime?
Oh, we should.
Did that not occur to you?
No, but now it did. Well, spoilers for a future episode.
Put it in the list.
Oh, it's on the list, yeah. I'll just get, like, the first trade and we'll do that.
Amazing.
Anyway, it was really funny. And this all ties back to this episode because
Right.
I was thinking, like, what does it mean to be like Jesus? But this comic book figured it out,
Yeah.
which is when you are in an incredibly violent world, you just help people who need help.
Just help people. Yeah.
So, Alma's
But
distinction doesn't even make sense.
Though, because you're not supposed to serve people.
Right. But you're supposed to serve people.
You have to be like Christ.
When you're like, but be like Christ at the same time.
Be like Christ.
Does she want them to get superpowers, do you think?
I genuinely do not know what her line of reasoning was here.
Only help drowning people, because if you're like Jesus, you can walk on water.
Yeah.
So you walk out and you save them.
I think it's just another one of those instances where people assume old people are wise when not all old people are wise.
100%. Because it's not useful.
No.
Alright, sorry. I got distracted with that. It's a really good book. We're going to read it.
Okay.
It's going to be funny. Alma does point out, at least, this is useful, that if they're going to serve others or be like Jesus or either, the very least they could do is take their names off of the poster for the super supper. Because
Right.
obviously bragging about yourself isn't quite the way to do it.
Right.
And that is at least not ridiculous.
Yeah.
in
I
the way
agree
that
with her
the
there.
other stuff
If
was.
the whole point is to help others and, try to be selfless to a degree.
Right. You don't have to put Stacy, Marsha, and Goose's super supper.
Right.
Of course, you could still name it super supper. They decide the name has to be changed too.
Yeah,
It's like,
I
it
didn't
doesn't.
understand that either, but anyway.
But that's fine. They have a new plan, but it's the same plan. And Alma reminds the girls to pray before they begin, and finally she seems satisfied criticizing these children's plans.
Yeah, she's kind of a twat.
And when they leave, Alma says another separate little prayer to help them accomplish even more than they could possibly expect. And the narrator tells us that the kids make sign-up sheets and they put them in a few select places, only 4, for 4 families each. So at most they're making 16 soups.
Right.
But they put them out and they go back the next day to check on their lists to see who wants some of their nice Jesus soup.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're out there, they find an entirely new sign-up sheet, one that they've never made. And this one has 10 lines instead of 4. So it's like, this is a nightmare. And it turns out Marsha's sisters had gotten excited and they had made their own sheets. So basically the children have way more soup they have to make now than they expected. And that's bad. But of course, through Alma's advice, they're going to have Jesus on their side. That's what we know through the show because we know how fiction works by now.
Yes.
But back at the factory, the group is finally using the newly discovered equipment after repairing some of it a bit, using these manuals. And the first attempt goes miserably and the machine breaks down just before a commercial break.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't go well, and Theo now discovers even more. A report in one of the manager's offices or whatever about the many bank accounts under Alex's control, including a manager account specifically...
Jesus Christ, Alex.
A manager account specifically used for hiring and the like, which at the time had $1.5 million in it.
Jesus Christ.
And has been in a bank and accruing interest for the past several years. So it's probably worth even more now. Because, again, Alex is very stupid.
Also, could something just, like, leave a Post-it note at least? Like, something?
But it turns out that his uncle, who he inherited this factory from, was even dumber. But having heard the whistle from the factory blow because they were using the machines, some of the townsfolk appear because they used to work there, and they're sort of checking on the factory, and they're at least a little hopeful that the factory is operational again. So like, hey, this used to be the job I had, and I've been completely broke since the factory shut down. So, you got some of that money?
He's like, we don't even know how these machines work. He's like, I do.
Yeah.
I worked here for 40 years.
That's literally what they sound like in the line, I'm pretty sure. But the girls lament, we're going back to the girls, and they lament their overextended offer and how they're going to need an army to feed all these hungry people. And Marcia gives up on hoping for anything better. She made a mistake asking God for something, some more responsibility and even more power. Not power, but like ability.
Right.
And worse still, when they go back to check on the sheets, again, they've all been taken away. So they don't even know who they owe soup to apologize to, that they can't make it all. And we're getting back to the factory, and that's where Hillary explained. One of the townspeople is just like, I used to work here for 30 years, but I've been out of work since then. I've been broke as fuck.
I've been sitting on the curb down by the general store.
But he also tells us what happened. And so it's not entirely Alex's fault, although still.
Okay.
Really have a little curiosity.
Yeah.
Because it turns out his uncle, who used to own the factory, was just a right cold-hearted bastard, and he shut the factory down and fired everyone. Why? No one knows. You'd figure even a real bastard would be like, I can make money off of this. Let me do the money.
Right.
But instead he was just like, I want to ruin a town. So I'm going to shut the factory
Sounds like
down.
he had undiagnosed dementia.
Yeah, probably. But even dementia, like, you can be vaguely logical, right? Like, a factory. Keep it running. Make that money.
It depends on how aggressive and what stage he's in.
Well, he was in a super advanced stage because he shut down the factory for no reason and locked everything.
Like my grandma used to walk away from her home, like her, like the special care home. She just wandered. One time she wandered and just ended up sitting in a Dunkin' Donuts. They found her. They found her like later in the day, but also before that, before she got put into home, she left her house, walked to the bank, took out all of her money, and then nobody knows what happened to it. She took out all of it. They didn't find it for a while. Like,
they found it eventually.
They found it eventually, but, like, there was no reason for that. She just emptied her bank account and then went home.
Huh.
And I guess hid it. I don't know. Nobody knows what she was thinking.
Okay.
It's scary.
You're right. Okay, this guy was clearly suffering from dementia.
Yeah.
And to be fair, for his part, Alex does not do a lot of work on defending his uncle, which is the reasonable response, because fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe he had dementia. Someone should have been like...
Whenever he put this man in his will to inherit this big-ass company, there should have been a conversation.
Right.
Right.
Alright, but another machine begins to go a little haywire when another commercial break interrupts it. But right after, we realize that the machine was not going to explode or harm anyone. Because every time a machine starts, like, sputtering, Alex freaks his shit out. He's like, run! We're all gonna fucking die! He's so nervous about machinery. But it turns out it was simply getting up and running after having been out of commission for, I think they say, 30 years.
I guess like 30 years, yeah.
And the person who turned it on was very familiar with the machine, so he knew how to coax it to work properly. He's like, this is old Birdie. Me and her go way back. She just needs a bunch of oil or something. So Alex realizes that all of these people can be useful to him because they used to do this job, and so he offers this particular man a job. And he says, he's like, you best not be fooling her. Don't be clowning with me. And so basically, this town is going to be turned around through the power of capitalism after all.
Woohoo.
Woohoo.
Thanks, Jesus.
And that's it. That's the last we hear of the factory. So
yeah,
he's gonna, I think the narrator gives a little bit of like a epilogue where it's just like, and the factory was up and running within a week and everyone's happy again.
Whatever. You see the sun shining through clouds and lighting up the town.
Yeah.
But it was like people were coming out with rubbing their eyes like they've been asleep for 30 years.
Is that the old factory? Oh my!
I forgot what smog looked like.
My physical comedy doesn't go over on podcasts. Alright, but the kids, the children, the girl children, are beginning to think that a local bully has stolen their lists. This is Hugh McClaw, who we'll hear about later.
Yes.
But they talk to Alma about it. And they're prepared to go to everyone in the town and confess that they really screwed the pooch on this one.
The pooch?
Pooch. Pooch.
The pooch.
The pooch. I guess some word there made me say pooch.
It's probably the country accent, so you had to listen to it.
But Alma asks them what they've learned through their experiment to try to get closer to God. And Marcia says, nothing. Actually, not nothing. To never experiment again, because it always goes terribly, no matter what.
That's my girl. That's me. That's the me of the group.
So she's just like, fuck all that noise, and she quits. But Alma tells them that they've begun becoming more like Christ. And while it might be hard, they've made an important first step, so they may as well continue. So the kids decide that what they have to do is go to each house in town and first ask if they signed up for soup. And then ask if they have, say, sorry.
We don't have soup.
We don't have soup. That's so much soup, we couldn't do it. But when they get to the first house, they find a local mom delivering a wagon full of soup. And several more women in similar situations sort of roll up this hill just in the nick of time. And they explain that the sign-up sheets were taken by those local moms, probably. It's always going to be moms.
Of course. Getting their fingers up and everything.
Uh-huh. And, of course, we're making soup. So, like, what is a man going to do it? A man's going to do something domestic?
Help others?
Help others?
Cook?
Help maybe even carry some of this fucking treasure trove of soup?
No.
Even the manual labor of carrying soup?
No.
A man?
He's already worked his full shift. He's home resting, watching the game.
Doesn't have to do anything anymore, okay? Point is, it was all the people in town who took the lists so that they could help deliver these hugs from God, which is what the new title of the program was called. And that's obviously great news for the girls. So they rush back to report that to Alma, and the narrator tells us that the girls grew stronger and more courageous from that point on, and they would be more willing to take risks, especially for Jesus. And the same was true for Alex. This is the epilogue, who hired people on and learned how to work his factory, after being willing to risk what he had to do something greater. That's the sentence I wrote. It took me a minute. And the entire town got turned around. I'm not sure
he really did a risk. He just was forced to look in front of him.
Yeah, he didn't even make a risk. Like, he took you're right. Risks. He did zero risk.
He did nothing. If these kids hadn't showed up, he would have thought he was making bad candy for the rest of his life.
Until he shut down the factory and someone else made bucos of bucks off of it.
Exactly, yes.
Because they'd walk inside and be like, hold on a minute.
Let me check. Where's the office? That's the first place I should check.
All the offices.
Yes.
More than one. Yeah, you're right. He didn't risk a single thing because he quit his dirt making for no reason, by the way.
Yeah.
He quit that. And then he found a bank account with millions of dollars in it.
Right.
And then he just hired people with the millions of dollars that he did not take out of his own bank account.
Right.
But a bank account he just already had access to.
It was just gifted to him. It appeared out of nowhere in his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did nothing.
He literally did nothing. Except
now he's going to be one of those managers who doesn't know how his own factory works.
Right.
He's just going to rely on everybody else.
Well, let's be clear. He did do one thing, and it was stop making money off of the one person who had already been paying him.
Right.
He stopped that.
Guess that was kind of risky.
So he could make other money.
Yeah.
Okay. Just real brave soul over there. And the musical,
like, some would say.
And the musical number closes us out again. I close my browser. Boop, boop.
I like the song too. I don't remember it.
Okay, I was going to ask.
We should play a little clip.
Yeah, let me try to find it.
That's basically that. I think that's fun.
Yeah, it wasn't awful.
It's not the greatest.
Yeah, I'm just really bad at, especially, it's, when I want to hear music,
yeah,
I do. When I don't, when I'm not expecting it, or it's just not part of what I was doing,
yeah, I'm
just not in the mood for it. It's like, no, that's not what I asked for.
Yeah.
Fuck all the way
I'm done.
Alright, so let's move on to the final episode for our day.
Okay.
Grace to Hugh. And we get a previously on with this episode, and apparently there was some episode about a big rock and a ship approaching a bay. I don't know. No idea what this previously on had to do with this.
I'm like, did I skip an episode?
No. I was like, what? And the previously on has nothing to do with what happens.
No.
In this one.
Yeah. So, okay. It seems like an accident. Yeah. Like they clipped on the wrong opener.
But basically all the kids are present for this one. Oh, I know what's related to it. They run off with their parents or one of their parents, I think, CJ's, when they notice that there's a fire. That's the only reason this previously on was involved. Okay. You did not need it remotely.
What did the preview say again?
There was an episode about a big rock, and there was a ship approaching the bay, and then they notice a fire, and they all run off.
Okay.
You honestly could have done it without, but it makes, at least it's vaguely...
Whatever.
Yeah.
I guess if you listen to this every week...
Right.
You'll remember that episode and be like, well, what happened when they ran out to the fire? Where's that storyline?
Even though this one starts with the fire, because when the episode begins, we get a musical ditty about the fire, and then the narrator explains how the fire at the Collins mansion has gotten all the townspeople together to try to help. And it runs a serious risk of growing out of control, and even the fire brigade is having trouble keeping it, calm. Mrs. Collins watches her home burn to the ground from afar, lamenting how her life has turned out. Because, of course, her husband died years ago. The mansion itself is so large that she's never even been in all the rooms. And she's worried...
Why are people not willing to just explore their space?
Why are people so willing to live in a mansion in which you've never been in all the rooms and not just fucking get rid of it?
Yes. Just
sell it.
Get a smaller space.
You know what? Tear that shit down and maybe sell the land to somebody else.
If I lived in a mansion, could use it. Every room would be themed, and I'd sleep in a different room every night.
Something. Do something.
Yeah.
Or just get rid of the space, honestly. Cut your house in half, sell the other half to someone who could maybe use it.
Yeah. I'd rent out all the rooms to all my friends.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then we'd just be a happy family house.
There's so many things you can do with all of this money.
Yeah.
And I'm just sick of hearing. Alright, whatever.
Dumb people with money. Give me some.
But her husband died, she hasn't been in all the house, and she's worried, particularly about the firefighters, because they're getting very close to the flames, because they're obviously trying to fight the fire.
They're firefighters.
Yes. But she's very compassionate. She's like, be careful. Which is fair.
Yeah.
And they've almost got the fire under control, and even the children are helping. Not fight the fire, of course, that would be crazy, but sort of helping support the brigade. I think they were holding the hose or something. They were helping without getting too close to flames. And next we get the fire chief, who's managed to get the fire out, but he's as yet uncertain what caused it in the first place. He's like, maybe a lantern got knocked over. Maybe lightning struck it. Maybe there's electric. Who knows? And Mrs. Collins comes by and she congratulates and thanks the children for their efforts. And the firefighters run off to sort of finish packing up or getting all their shit done. And once they're back inside the now damaged mansion, CJ, a child, is almost crushed by a collapsing wall, but he's saved by his grandpa Chuck. And this is when they start talking about what each animal is, because CJ's a bear.
Right.
He's the grandson of Chuck. Chuck is a grizzly bear. And he apparently ran faster than anyone had seen in years, because that wall was coming down. And they're like, grizzlies can be really fast when they want to be.
Dad strength.
Yeah, and he was just like, roar! But the structure is, basically the point is the structure is really damaged. And that's pretty bad. And there's even more bad news coming up. Maybe it's good, though. We'll see after the commercial break, because right before it, CJ says that he knows how the fire got started.
Uh-oh.
Bum, bum, bum. Damn. And so a song brings us back to the show, and this one is about whoever started this fire is in real trouble. And after this brief little interlude, CJ tells us that as the wall fell on him, he noticed a box of matches and some fireworks. And cougar tracks. Like, how do you know cougar tracks? He's like, I'd recognize cougar tracks anywhere. I've been hunted by many cougars in my life, and I know.
I'm 10.
I'm 10. I'm the cougar pro. So they name Hugh, who is the local cougar kid, who is sort of a known bully.
Yeah, he's the bad kid.
He's the bad kid. And Grandpa tells them not to jump to conclusions just yet, but the children tell tales of all the dumb, dangerous, and bad boy shit that Hugh has done over the years.
Yeah.
I learned this about Hugh. CJ is blind in one eye. And Hugh is a big meanie, and he often makes fun of CJ's blindness in one eye and calls him Cyclops.
Damn, what's happening at Hugh's house?
Yeah, apparently it's also been implied that Hugh does not have a happy home life.
Happy home life, yeah.
And that's why
those go hand in hand.
Might be why he's this way. So this is a thing I learned from the Wikipedia page for Paws and Tails. I didn't do much more research than that.
I did zero research.
But he's a cougar. And conveniently for the group, they also noticed that Hugh has been watching the group from afar. So he's like right over there. And they're like, Hugh, you get your ass over here. The adult is. He's like, you get your ass over here. We're going to talk about this fire. And once interrogated, he pretty quickly confesses that he accidentally threw a firecracker, it had a bad fuse, into a pile of pine needles that were near the mansion. And that's what started the fire here. And he's not really taken real responsibility yet. Because he says if Mrs. Collins had took better care of her house, there wouldn't have been a pile of dry pine needles just sitting around.
This old lady alone in a mansion.
But the fire chief, who is, I think, a stag, he's like a deer, because they keep calling him Fire Chief Stag.
Oh.
It's probably not a clever name, it's just, he's a stag.
Probably not.
He insists that Hugh understand that this is his responsibility, and he can't blame it on some idle pine needles. And so he reluctantly does. He says, I'm sorry for the accident, I just... And then the fire chief points out that he was disobeying both himself, because he's talked to him about this, and his own dad when he was playing with fireworks again, because they both specifically told him not to before.
Right. He has an addiction.
But Hugh asks fire chief not to tell his dad. He's like, don't tell my dad, it's going to be terrible for me.
He's going to beat the shit out of me. I hate his voice.
Yeah.
This is around.
His actual voice I'm not doing nearly right, but he does end, like, everything.
Yeah. Which kind of reminds me, did you ever watch Zoobly Zoo?
I've never heard of that in my life. That is too old
for you. I was just at the age when it was, like, ending.
Okay.
It was, like, an 80s children's show on PBS.
Mm-mm.
No? It's, like, grown adults and lots of, like, leotards being animal. They're all animals.
Ugh.
I loved this show. I loved it. But... they all had, like, a little thing to their voice that was reflecting their animal characters, and that's what this reminded me of. But Zoobly Zoo did it better.
Yeah. But he's just always like, oh, man, why there gotta be pine needles? But while they're still discussing the incident, Goose is trying to do something. I don't remember what, but she starts another small fire in part of the house. And so the children rush off to grab the fire chief, so he gets distracted from Hugh, obviously. He's like, I don't have time for this, there's a fire.
Yeah.
And he runs off to fight a fire. But Hugh, he's, I guess, good-natured enough. He rushes to try to help, too. Mm-hmm. But while he's doing that, CJ has a shovel. I think he's trying to throw dirt on the fire or something.
Yeah.
And he smashes Hugh right in the face with his shovel. Which knocks him well off his feet. And they're like, is he okay? Like, shovel just hit him in the face. He's got a shovel-shaped dent in his head now.
Yeah, he's passed out.
But Mrs. Collins is there, and the kids are, it seems he's okay, roughly okay, they're mostly laughing at him and making jokes. Like, did you see that? He got his fucking head caved in. Like, that motherfucker is messed up. But Mrs. Collins is like, we gotta get this kid out of here. He's been hit with a shovel. And then we get another commercial break, and coming back, there's another musical summary of what's happened so far.
I like all the musical summaries.
The musical summaries are, I guess, somewhat useful.
Yeah.
This was the one I had to do this morning instead of, 2 days ago. And maybe I was in a different mood, but the musical summaries I could at least listen to this time.
Gotcha.
So I was like, I see what's happening. It's not any point in this.
I feel like the music in this one was better than the music in the first two, but I didn't mind all of it.
Yeah, okay.
This is what Zoobly Zoo looks like. It's horrifying if you didn't grow up watching it.
No. Horrible.
Isn't that terrible?
I don't want it.
It's so 80s.
Yeah, it is. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a human Arthur. Author. I almost said author.
A human Arthur. Yeah, or mixed with cats to play.
Ugh. How about that movie, though? Are you going to see it? You look excited.
Fuck yeah, I'm going to see it.
I've seen
Cats twice on Broadway.
Do you like it?
I like some of the songs.
Okay.
And it's so easy to make fun of.
Okay.
So yes and no.
So you like it, but
I like it somewhat ironically, but also I genuinely do like some of the songs. Memory is a great song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking. I don't know anything about Cats.
Yeah.
But
I
just know that it's well known for being a thing people mock.
I was an introverted theater kid, which means I'm a theater kid in my heart, but I don't perform or like to be in the center of attention. I just like seeing as many plays as possible. And my grandpa used to take me to every play that came into town because he was a member of the Fox Theater. So.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So let's talk about this thing again. Another commercial break. And then there's a musical summary that we talked about. And then it's been a few days since the fire now. And Hugh is okay, but he's got a very distinctive bump on his head. Mm-hmm. And that's from, of course, being hit with a shovel. And Goose feels terrible. She's a weasel. We find that out. Because, what do they say? Like, weasels can be real strong when they need to be or something.
Oh, yeah, something like that. But I was like, in my head, she was a goose, because her name's Goose.
Right.
So.
Her real name is like, John de Goostleffer.
Yeah, Goose.
So they just take Goose out of it. Yeah, it's Gooselman.
Something like that.
But anyway, she feels terrible because she's the one that started the smaller fire, and she doesn't think she can ever look Mrs. Collins in the eye ever again. But now they're at a little celebration, which was thrown by Mrs. Collins to commemorate everyone helping fight this fire in her home. And Hugh is unable to feel comfortable because Mrs. Collins obviously has to be super pissed at him.
Yeah.
And worse still, well, before we get there, CJ's dad points out that Mrs. Collins specifically asked for him to be there. So clearly she can't be too mad, or she's going to murder you here. Mm-hmm. One of those two things, though.
Yeah.
And then, worse still is CJ is sitting next to Hugh, and it was CJ's shovel that hit him in the head. So he's like, it's you. I don't want to talk to you. You're the worst. And they fight really briefly until Dad tells them to just cut their shit out. Like, stop it. We're not doing this today. Stupid children.
The fucking kids.
And so he gives Mrs. Collins gives a little speech, and she rewards a little, it has a name, but it's like a firefighter award for most valor or something, to Goose for being so willing to help despite having a little accident of her own. So, of course, Goose feels much better because Mrs. Collins isn't holding anything against her for starting another fire after it was already out. Mm-hmm. And, it's basically, it happens to the best of us. Some of us just start fires accidentally when we're trying to help.
Well, they warned that, like, there's probably still hot spots in there that might, catch back up. So.
Yeah. And Mrs. Collins is basically being like, it's fine, man.
Yeah.
Like, you also helped after you started it again. So, like, shit happens. And, of course, Hugh is upset that Goose is getting credit for anything, considering that she's the one that started a fire herself. And in his exact words, she doesn't deserve that.
You laugh every time you do that voice.
Because it's stupid.
It's so stupid.
But CJ's dad also points out, no, Goose doesn't deserve it, but she gets it anyway. That's called grace. And now Mrs. Collins continues, and she talks about, how much money it's going to take to repair the mansion. And Hugh starts to feel sick. Hugh starts to feel sick to his stomach to hear the ginormous number, especially because it's his dad that's going to have to be responsible for paying the damages. Mm-hmm. So he's just like, I feel sick to my stomach. But Mrs. Collins reveals that she has a check for the damages with her. And Hugh, or more importantly, Hugh's dad, doesn't owe her a single penny. Mm-hmm. He is inspired by this. He apologizes sincerely this time for all the damage he's caused. And Mrs. Collins forgives him very easily. Mm-hmm. She's like, it's great. That stuff happens. This is what it's like to live in a good world with good people. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, yeah, in an excited way this time.
Yes.
I'm making some of those up. It's just funny. All right, but now we get another musical number happens, and this is just an extended musical version of everything that's just happened.
Yes.
And I had the thought, maybe we should have just listened to these little closing songs instead of sitting through nearly 90 minutes of the show itself.
We could have done that, except for we definitely wouldn't know anything that's going on.
No, we'd have a rough idea. We'd have a very rough outline. But this one's a little longer than the others, and it even includes a little information about how Jesus told us to ask for forgiveness, and of course we'll get it if we ask for it. And this actually makes me think about one of the themes that we've had on this show. Uh-huh. What exactly does forgiveness even mean?
Right. Still don't know.
Because if you have to ask for it, is it forgiveness?
Right. It seems like something that should be offered, not requested.
Right. Like, oh, I'm sorry.
People do that. People are like, forgive me, please forgive me.
Yeah.
Like, what does that do?
And like, were you not going to forgive them before, but then they asked and you're like, okay.
Right. I mean, apparently God does.
Yeah, that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me.
You need to ask God for forgiveness in order to get it.
Right.
But if God has already forgiven you by killing his son.
Right.
I don't know the fuck.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Like, if it's conditional on you getting asked for the forgiveness,
right,
it's probably not forgiveness.
Right.
So you either already did it and you didn't need them to ask, or you weren't going to do it.
That's grace.
That, I guess?
I don't know, man.
It doesn't make sense, is my point.
Yes, I agree.
So, my point is, don't ever apologize, children.
Don't. Always apologize, refuse to forgive.
We're going at this from different angles, but either of our advice is the way you should live your life. That's what we're learning.
Apologize for things you didn't even do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm so sorry about your...
Carry the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Yeah. Or do my version. And just never apologize for anything. Those are both very healthy, reasonable ways to live, especially as an adult.
Sure.
Yes.
Whatever makes you sleep at night.
All right, so let's talk about the best. Let's talk about the worst, because this show is over. We're done.
I like the music. And something about it, and I can't place exactly what, but like all these different kids shows popped in my mind while listening to this. It kind of reminded me, you mentioned Arthur.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of Arthur. It reminded me a little bit of Franklin.
Yeah.
I loved Franklin.
Yeah, Franklin's great.
I was too old for Franklin, and I loved Franklin.
Me too.
Little Bear.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of Little Bear.
There's kind of a Berenstein Bearsiness too to it. And then also, I don't know, I need to look into this because I have these vague memories of these call-in stories where, like, there was a phone number, you call the phone number, and it was like a chapter of a story, and then you'd call every week and there'd be a new chapter.
Oh, wow.
This ages the fuck out of me.
I see that.
Yeah. This is obviously through cell phone.
You've just grown 4 wrinkles.
The phone was attached to the wall.
Yeah.
And I would use it. I would call. I would listen to this little story. And then follow up with it every week.
That's so weird.
And that reminded me of this too. Because they were probably of this quality.
Okay. Let's see. So that was your best, is just nostalgic?
Yeah, it just reminded me of all these things I did like, which is probably why I said I liked this.
Yeah.
Because truly, when you break it down, these are not very good.
Yeah.
But...
So what was your worst?
Worst would be some of the voice acting.
Yeah.
I hate Goose's voice. Now, yeah, Goose is like... Yeah.
I'm zany. Yeah. I have a weasel voice.
Hated it. And then obviously, the cougar's voice. Yeah.
Let's see. My best is going to be, it was really kind of funny eventually how stupid Alex was.
Yeah.
At first I was exasperated by it. Then he kept going and I was like, this is the dumbest man that's ever existed of all men.
For real.
So I just was eventually amused. I was just like, wow, this is just really funny to watch this man flail around. He's been doing this for years. And he never even bothered.
Does he mention a wife and kids or anything?
I don't think he's got one of those.
I don't see how he could possibly have maintained anything in his life.
Because he's too dumb.
Right.
And let's see, for the worst, it's obviously got to be the musical breaks for me. I am so bad at music stuff.
Yes.
Inserted into things that weren't musical before.
Right.
You start musical, I can deal. You don't start musical, don't start. It's just not for me. Alright, so let's talk about some things that are like this, that are not this, that are like this.
Okay, well I did just mention a bunch.
You did. Let's just go with those.
We can go with those.
I'm going to recommend Berenstein Bears.
I love the Berenstein Bears. Berenstain Bears.
Berenstain Bears, you're right.
Can't handle that.
So do those. They're decent books, and they had a show for a while.
I liked the show. I loved the books.
Yeah, so just do that instead of this.
Those were some of the books that I would always get at the book fair.
Uh-huh.
It was like those books, and then The Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Goosebumps, Baby
Captain Underpants.
That was too young for me. Yeah, we didn't have that. But... You know, Walden Book Fairs. That's what I'm going to recommend.
Oh, shit.
I fucking loved Walden Book Fairs. They were the best. I hope they're still happening. I think that they are.
Or any book fair.
Yeah, book fair.
Just go to a book fair and get a book.
Nothing to do with this whatsoever. Yeah. But do that, not this.
Yeah. It was tangentially related.
Yeah.
That's really how I do it, too.
That's really all we ever do.
That's all it is. All right, so let's talk about what we are going to do next week.
What are we doing, Josh? Next week. The Star.
We're doing The Star.
Isn't that that's a Christmas story, though, isn't it?
It is a...
It's about...
It was a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
But it was about the birth of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's an animated movie.
Yeah.
Starring mostly animals.
I remember when this came out.
It was like last year.
We can't do it in August.
You want to wait?
Yeah, that's a December movie.
Let me get something new.
I can't watch things out of their season.
All right, let's find something else instead. We're going to do this live on mic where I choose the next
and
thing.
You're not going to be grumpy about it.
I'm not.
My brother gets so annoyed with me because if an episode of something comes on TV and it's a Halloween episode or a Christmas episode or whatever, I can't watch it. I refuse.
Okay, let's do... Hold. I wanted something short. I didn't want to watch something too long.
Okay.
This one. Next week, what are we doing, Hillary?
Josh, next week we are doing a movie called Hoovey.
Hoovey.
I don't know what that means.
I don't either. I assume it's a person's name.
I assume, it's the name of a horse.
Let's read the description
Hoovey,
on Netflix where we'll be watching it.
Okay.
It stars Patrick Warburton.
Oh, I love him!
And it's when a life-threatening brain tumor seems to end the basketball career to which he has long aspired, a tenacious teen refuses to quit on his dream.
So I guess Warburton is his dad?
Probably.
All right, let's do it.
We're going to watch Hoovey.
Hoovey it is.
So get ready for next week where we're going to talk about Hoovey. And remember, as always, if you like the show, you got to give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast app or service you are using. It is not an option. You have to do it.
You have to.
And of course, tell your friends about us any way that you can. If you don't have any friends,
we'll be your friends.
Tell your animal friends who talk to you, like dogs and weasels and
or the inanimate objects in your house.
Who also talk to you.
Exactly.
Hey, we don't mind having audience members who have burgeoning illness, mental illnesses.
We're here for you.
We're here for you. We're your friends.
We are your friends. Don't call us.
Like, don't call me, but I will support you.
Yeah.
And maybe guide you to someone who you should talk to about those talking inanimate objects.
Yes.
Because that's what friendship is.
Yes.
Honestly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but as always, you can find links to everything in the description of this episode. That's primarily social media, and there's a website where you can send us a comment. You can go to send us a comment or a question. Eventually, I'm just going to change it to an email address that you can use if you'd like.
Right.
Because it's where the comments and questions go.
Right.
But eventually we want to do that, so as always, thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate you.
We do. We appreciate you a lot.
And bye-bye.
Bye.